Thanks for joining us to learn more about the Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition workshop brought to you by the Strong Transitions Program, a partnership between the McHenry County Economic Development Corporation and the Small Business Development Center at McHenry County College. My name is Mark Picos. I'm the Executive Director of the McHenry County Economic Development Corporation, and I look forward to sharing a little bit about the Strong Transitions Program, the Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition Program as part of it, what you might learn as a participant in an upcoming cohort of the Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition Program, and of course what you have the opportunity to take away. Before we dive into ETA, I want to talk a little bit about the Strong Transitions Program itself. So the Strong Transitions Program, like I said, is a partnership between the MCEDC and the SBDC. What it's intended to do is enhance, engage, and educate entrepreneurs on both the sell side and the buy side of business transitions in McHenry County. Nationally, we have an issue. Many of you have probably heard about the gray wave that is supposedly forthcoming, and what that means is there's a great transference of knowledge that isn't happening between the older generation who is exiting their careers and jobs and the younger generation who are taking on the mantle. The average age for business ownership in the United States is 54.3, which is a fine age to run a business, but that's the average age, not the median age. And as the years go along, those business owners are more and more generally not transitioning those businesses. So what that equates to is the opportunity for a $14.3 trillion wealth transfer at the national level. $14.3 trillion of businesses that could be acquired but aren't, because business owners, over 80% of existing business owners, don't have an identified transition plan or exit strategy. So through an advanced McHenry County grant program, the partners responsible for Strong Transitions have created this to engage local business leaders in establishing a roadmap as well as educate the next generation of business owners to take on those businesses and become entrepreneurs themselves. It's a two-pronged program aimed at both the sell side and the buy side. So on the seller side, you have transition advising. Existing business owners interested in developing that roadmap that I talked about will receive one-on-one exit strategy advising from experienced subject matter experts who have been on the buy and sell side of an acquisition or a merger in the past and help identify some of those financial, personal, business-related, employee-related, and of course psychological issues associated with transferring a business. When you have a business owner who's owned a business for a long time, there is a significant emotional aspect of it beyond just understanding what the value of a business is. How do I go about marketing a business? What can I get for my business if I do sell it, and who should I sell it to? Which brings us to our next point, the buy side. The Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition side of the program is an interactive, non-credit workshop series that educates learners about searching for a targeted acquisition, creating an acquisition plan when they identify a quality acquisition, and then operating that established business once they acquire it. So you'll notice that these programs, while similar and have the same intent and outcome of retaining legacy and successful businesses in McHenry County, have a little bit of a different approach, and that's intentional. On the transition advising side, that is all confidential. We want to keep that very discreet so that business owners feel comfortable sharing with their advisor without putting it out in the open or to the general public that their business is for sale. As you can imagine, that could create some significant problems with their existing employee base, knowing that their business is for sale, with their competitor base, with their customer base, and we certainly don't want to upset the general flow. Now, the ETA, or Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition side, that is a peer group, more or less, a cohort program where you'll actually participate with like-minded individuals who are also on the acquisition path. Some of them may be even acquiring in the same industry as you. And that's by design as well. We feel that by creating a group mentality, we'll be able to encourage more people to participate, because when you have the strength and support of your peers, it feels much easier to tackle these significant issues with acquisition. So let's talk a little bit about the logistics of the Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition class and workshop that we offer. So this is an 8-week program, currently slated for Wednesday evenings. It goes from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. on each Wednesday consecutively for 8 weeks. So 2 hours jam-packed with a ton of information, learning about how to acquire a business. These classes take place at Catalyst Campus in Woodstock, McHenry County College's new workforce development and four-year university location. Is an instructor-led workshop. Everything is live. The instructor is the facilitator for it. The instructor that we have for this program is someone who is an expert in mergers and acquisitions, works for a financial institution. They're a CPA themselves, and so they know a lot of the ins and outs of business transfers. The cost for this program, there is a scholarship available. So normally this program would be offered at $1,899 per participant, but through the Advanced McHenry County Grant Program, we've been able to reduce that cost to $189. That is all done through a scholarship, which you do have to apply for. It's not a rigorous application. It's a pretty simple and straightforward application, and we will share a link or a QR code towards the end of this presentation so that you can pursue that. So let's talk a little bit about what you might learn in the Entrepreneurship Through Acquisition class. So we build a lot of our curriculum based off of the Harvard Business Review's Buying a Small Business. What we start with is thinking big and buying small, identifying the opportunity that is available to you, and making sure that this really is the correct path, because it is not the correct path for everyone. Some people are best suited to remain in the workforce and work for somebody. Entrepreneurship is a career in and of itself that isn't necessarily for everyone. We also talk about the start of the acquisition process, how you start to build your bench of advisors. When I say advisors, I mean everything from an attorney to a CPA to just those subject matter experts, people who have experienced this in the past and are willing to share their experience. And then we dive into preparing your search. How to anticipate the cost of your search, how you're going to cover the initial costs of the actual search process, not even the acquisition yet, but how do you cover those incidental costs? What do you do while you do that? I mean, the search process can become a part-time job, honestly. So how do you pair that with having a full-time job, having family responsibilities, and so on and so forth? And then, of course, identifying the characteristics that are critical for the business that you want to acquire. What those characteristics are, and how do you identify them without actually spending time in the business? Because in most cases, you aren't working in the business that you are looking to acquire. A lot of cases, maybe you are, but in a lot of cases, you're going in with a limited level of familiarity to the existing operations. And then we dive into finding the right business to buy. And that's a 2-class, we cover that over 2 classes because it's a pretty dense subject matter. We talk about the ongoing aspects of the search, where you should be at in the search when you are getting to the business identification phase, sourcing prospects using business brokers, how to best manage a relationship with a business broker, identifying profitable small businesses without being able to read financial statements or tax returns, using financial statements when that's available to you to gauge enduring profitability, not just present day profitability, not just historical profitability, but long-term profitability post-acquisition. How is your acquisition of the business going to change the profitability, and how are you going to approach that? One of the most important factors that we cover in this section is business valuation. Now, this isn't a CVA or business valuation certification program. We aren't going to teach you to be a certified valuation professional. However, there are aspects of business valuation that are absolutely critical to know when you are the one that is searching these businesses. And we want to make sure that you're deploying your existing capital effectively. And so we want to give you some of the skills to create some of those back of the napkin valuations for these businesses. And then we'll dive into making an offer. What are you doing for preliminary due diligence with this business, and how are you creating the relationship with the existing owner so that you have access to those things that are critical to do due diligence on? How much paperwork is going to be waiting for you after you make the acquisition? How are you going to handle the existing accounts payable and accounts receivable? And then we're going to talk about how much you should pay for a particular business. We'll use some particular case studies that will dive into, do a deep dive into different business transfers and so on and so forth. And then, of course, creating the deal terms and the offer itself. Additionally, we'll talk a little bit about the finalization of the acquisition or completing the acquisition, confirmatory due diligence, raising acquisition equity, raising debt, negotiating a purchase agreement, and then what happens on the closing day and beyond. Of course, we want to incorporate a bit of growth strategy and leadership skill into this as well. So the last 3 periods are going to talk about the post-sale aspects. What is the role of you as the new chief executive officer of the business that you just worked to acquire? How are you going to approach organizational change? How are you going to approach changing the company culture? Every company has a culture, right? You are inheriting one, and if you want to make changes in that culture, you have to be very intentional about it. We're going to talk a little bit about marketing and the business's existing sales processes, how you can affect that, cost structures and pricing, KPIs and metrics, establishing them if they aren't existing, how do you allocate capital, how do you manage supply chain, how do you manage inventory. We're going to try to parenthetically encompass a lot of those things. Now, again, each one of these segments could be a class in and of itself. And in an MBA program, you'll likely find it to be one. So we aren't delivering an MBA program here. We are hoping to give you an introductory snapshot and perspective into what it takes to acquire a business. Now, as I mentioned, this is all instructor-led. However, for each segment of this cohort, the instructor typically brings in subject matter experts who can talk at a level of expertise about each one of these things. In previous cohorts, we've had business brokers, we've had attorneys who specialize in mergers and acquisitions, we've had individuals who work exclusively with culture, we've had people who work at banks. So each one of these is going to have 1 to 2 subject matter experts who you'll get to learn from, make a connection with, ask questions of, and have as an ongoing resource as you continue to develop and grow your acquisition plan or the acquisition itself. So who should do this, right? Now that I've reviewed all of the tenets of what we cover, what makes an ideal candidate for this? Of course, aspiring entrepreneurs ready to purchase a business. If somebody has the entrepreneurial spirit, has been bitten by the entrepreneurial bug, this is a great time to explore acquisition rather than doing your own startup. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with startup. As a matter of fact, America was built on startups. Silicon Valley is built on startups. However, there is a much less intense pathway to business ownership through acquisition rather than a startup. There are tangible things that you can, have as close to predetermined outcomes as you can identify with an existing business. Additionally, corporate professionals who have worked, a career in a corporate environment and said, I'd love to try my hand at small business ownership on a local level. That's a great opportunity for those individuals. Another individual we want to highlight that would be great for this is family members considering buying out or taking over an existing business. As you heard me talk about, most of the coursework is really designed to facilitate unknown business transfers, right? However, there is a lot to be gained for someone who is in an existing position to cover a business because, and I speak from my own experience here, a lot of times when you are in that second person seat, you aren't getting the full picture of the business's performance. So this class is going to teach you the questions to ask of your family member of how you can potentially, acquire that business, grow it from where it is, and keep it functioning into the future to be a great legacy for your family. And then of course on the investor side as well, this will be some incredible information if small business ownership is something you're interested in, but you don't necessarily want to work day in and day out in that business, right? This isn't a class particularly targeted towards investors. However, the information is critical for consideration when you're making an investment. You are going to be learning how to value these businesses, and in turn you'll get to identify how much capital you should be putting into a business, what some of the key factors of business acquisition are, because investors are doing nothing more than acquiring a portion of a business, proportionally acquiring a business. You may not own 100% of it, but 25%, 50%, 51%, that's a pretty significant share of business ownership. So that's just an idea of who is going to be a good fit for this workshop. In prior cohorts, we've had people run the gamut from individuals who want to acquire 30 to 50 person manufacturing businesses that have real estate associated with it, to individuals that want to perhaps just acquire a franchise or something to that effect. So we really want to provide this for everyone and provide some equal opportunity for business owners to learn, and the content is targeted from that perspective. It's designed to be digestible, it's designed to be accessible rather than some dense, heavy material that has a ton of, intensive mathematics and things to do. We really want this to be an intuitive workshop that helps that help people who wouldn't have otherwise learned this learn it. So the pathway, what you can expect to walk away with from this program, most importantly, is an acquisition CV, curriculum vitae, or a roadmap to perform an acquisition. One opportunity we're going to provide in an ongoing capacity for participants in this program is if you complete that acquisition CV, which it will be provided to you early on in the class, which will identify your skill set as a acquirer, we are happy to share that with some of those participants in the transition advising program. So some of the businesses may be in line with the acquisition that you're searching for, and we'll share that with the owners. And if they say, hey, this person seems like a really good fit, this seems like a great candidate that I'd like to discuss more with about acquiring my business, then we'll help facilitate an introduction. Obviously, there's no guarantees there. We aren't set out to be the matchmaker for this. However, if matches can possibly be made, we certainly want to help grow those relationships. Additionally, you're going to walk away with a expanded Rolodex of vetted bench of advisors, people who have had experience in this that you likely wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to work with. You'll learn a little bit about establishing a letter of intent, what that looks like, because that really is sort of the key to moving forward with an acquisition with a business. And you can kind of dive into learning about how those are structured from a real attorney. A financial readiness checklist. How do I know if I'm ready to buy a business? I know that I have some wealth that's stored in a 401k. I have equity in my home, but is it a effective use of that capital to deploy it in acquiring a business? That's one of those questions that a financial readiness checklist is going to talk. answer. Additionally, basic business valuation skills. Again, we aren't teaching you how to become a CPA or a valuation professional. We're teaching you how to make educated decisions based on what you can interpret from a business's existing financial position or statement of financial position, profit and loss sheet. And then, of course, continued support before and after an acquisition. By design, our respective programs, the MCEDC and the SBDC, do provide business owners with the support necessary to continue to enhance their business and grow it. And we want to do that to this program. One thing in particular, one tangible thing that you'll have the opportunity to participate in is the ETA Buyers Club, which is a peer group, an ongoing peer group offered only to the graduates of this program that'll meet recurring on a monthly basis and get together and talk about what's going on in their acquisition world. If you've made an acquisition, you're going to share some of the experience you've had with your peers that you were in this workshop with. Here's what I've done, here's how I've done it, so that they can potentially employ some of those, the good and the bad best practices that you've learned. And likewise, they're going to share back what they're experiencing in their search. That's put on by the facilitator of this program, Brian Asarco, and he will also bring in some additional subject matter experts or bring people back in from that program that he worked with in the past to continue providing that support. The ongoing support is really important to us, and we want to continue to get feedback from our participants in this class, learning about how we can better facilitate some of these business acquisition opportunities. So I will leave this up here for a moment so that you have the opportunity to scan the QR code and you can apply for the scholarship. As I mentioned, it is a really easy application. It takes probably about 6-7 minutes. The criteria is not crazy for it. We really want people to participate in this class. We're not going to limit it. However, since it is through a grant program, we do have to make sure that you're at least a McHenry County resident and you have a desire to potentially acquire a business if the environment is right. So that QR code is how you can visit the site to submit your application. Once that application is submitted, we'll review it on our end. We typically review them within a day or two, and we'll share that with our registration team, who will reach out to you via phone or email and get you registered for that class. They'll collect the $189 fee and get you all set up, ready to rock and roll. So if you have questions prior to submitting the application or ongoing questions, feedback, we are always open to it. We want to hear from you. We want to hear from what you need. We want to share how this class can benefit you. So both my information is here from the McHenry County Economic Development Corporation. Please feel free to visit our website to learn more about what we do. Send us an email at info@mcedc.com to dig in a little bit deeper. And of course, the Small Business Development Center. Maybe through this presentation, you've learned that this isn't the right time for you to dive into this class, but you would love to have a one-on-one consultation about what some other opportunities are, just to explore that a little bit. Maybe you're in business and have a particular problem that you want to help solve right now. SBDC is an incredible resource for that, and all of their services are at no cost, and they're all confidential. So SBDC at McHenry EDU is how you can get started in terms of connecting with the SBDC. So thank you for taking the time to review this video. I hope you got this far. I hope that it's been valuable and informational. I really encourage you to reach out to myself at the EDC or the SBDC if you have further questions, and let's get acquiring. Thanks.